Where?
Out there.
A witch lives there. A real one.
Daniele, you're holding all of us up.
Where's Violet?
She went for a walk.
You let her go on her own?
She'll be fine.
Wow.
No. What's up, Max?
What is this 216 number, Saul?
Excuse me?
You asked me if I had seen a 216-digit number, right?
Oh, yeah. You mean the bug. I ran into it working on pie.
What do you mean, ran into it?
Max, what is this all about?
There are these religious Jews I've been talking to.
Religious Jews?
Yeah, you know, Hasids, the guys with the beards.
I know what they are.
I met one in a coffee shop. It turns out the guy is a number theorist. The Torah is his data set. He tells me that they're looking for a 216-digit number in the Torah.
Hey, come on, it's just a coincidence.
There's something else, though.
What?
You remember those weird stock picks I got?
Yeah, yesterday's stock pick? Yes?
It turns out they were correct. I got 2 picks on the nose. Smack on the nose, Saul. Something's going on. It has to do with that number. There's an answer in that number.
Max, come with me. The ancient Japanese considered the go board to be a microcosm of the universe. Although, when it is empty, it appears to be simple and ordered. The possibilities of gameplay are endless. They say no 2 Go games have ever been alike, just like snowflakes. So, the Go board actually represents an extremely complex and chaotic universe. And that is the truth of our world, Max. It can't be easily summed up with math. There is no simple pattern.
But as a Go game progresses, the possibilities become smaller and smaller. The board does take on order. Soon all the moves are predictable.
And so?
So maybe, even though we're not sophisticated enough to be aware of it, there is a pattern, an order, underlying every Go game. Maybe that pattern is like the pattern in the stock market. The Torah. This 216 number.
This is insanity, Max.
Or maybe it's genius. I have to get that number.
Hold on, you have to slow down. You're losing it. You have to take a breath. I mean, listen to yourself. You're connecting a computer bug I had with a computer bug you might have had and some religious hogwash. If you want to find the number 216 in the world, you will be able to find it everywhere. 216 steps from your street corner to your front door. 216 seconds you spend riding on the elevator. When your mind becomes obsessed with anything, you will filter everything else out and find that thing everywhere. 320, 450, 22, whatever. You've chosen 216 and you will find it everywhere in nature. But Max, as soon as you discard scientific rigor, you're no longer a mathematician. You're a numerologist.
Are you the witch?
The witch or a witch?
Where am
On the other side.
I? Of what?
You want to see for yourself? We need to talk. Fancy meeting you here. You know the rules. The forest is yours. The town is mine. My girl is usual. She's not yours. Are you sure? It's only a matter of time. See what happens.
I want to go back.
You've got to make it before sunrise. Because if you don't, you're gonna be stuck on this side forever. Life can be just as magical as this garden, only it's a lot more fun.
When he said unto me, Son of man, dig now in the wall. And when I had digged in the wall, this is at the temple here. behold a door, and he said unto me, Go in, and behold the wicked abominations that they do here. Okay? So I went in and saw and behold every form of creeping things, abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel, portrayed upon the wall round about, and there stood before them 70 men of the ancients of the house of Israel. In the midst of them stood Jezaniah. Now, we could keep going on here, but I'll tell you, what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark, every man in the chambers of his imagery, for they say, The Lord seeth us not, the Lord hath forsaken the earth. Just like Isaiah 29. Who sees us? Who knows us? They do their works in the dark, right? So I believe that's what they're doing. They're bringing in the 70 ancients. They think they're bringing in their Messiah, their whatever.
Hi, I'm Mel Van Dusen, and welcome to the show. You know, I think many of us can remember as children some defining moment where some incident happened that took our lives in a different direction. And for me, one of those defining moments was when I was in the 4th grade. And Mrs. Duckworth, my teacher, would have a lottery every so often, and lucky children would go to some interesting event. And for me, when I was chosen one time, we got to go to the Rosicrucian Egyptian Museum in San Jose. And seeing the mummies there and going through the tomb and looking through at all these artifacts and really learning about an ancient mystical system, I remember that it seemed kind of similar to what I had learned in the church, but not really. But anyway, that was the beginning of a process for me whereby I looked for the commonality in the various religions and philosophies. And today, we have with us here, who better to explain this but the President and the Grand Master of the Rosicrucians, Julie Scott. Julie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mel.
Yeah. Julie, how would you describe the Rosicrucian Order to someone who had never heard of it?
The Rosicrucian Order is a philosophical and educational organization. It's not a religion, and members are all around the world, men and women who study natural laws in order to live in harmony with them.
And what do you mean by natural laws?
Well, natural laws are things such as cycles or understanding the growth patterns or understanding how things work in nature so that we can apply it in our own lives.
I imagine when people look at Rosicrucian Park, I think the museum is the only museum in the world with Egyptian-style architecture?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. They look at all these strange images and they wonder, you know, what in the world is going on in there? So what is the greatest misunderstanding that people have about the Rosicrucian Order?
Well, typically I think people misunderstand and believe that the Rosicrucian Order is a religion, which it is not. We encourage Rosicrucians to participate in whatever religion they choose to or not. And I think people also misunderstand anything that's called mysterious or mystical because it may seem a little bit spooky or unusual when really, again, these are just natural laws that people can understand and then apply in their lives.
I checked out your website, and there's a Rosicrucian timeline. And help me to understand this, but on the timeline there is Atlantis, dynastic Egypt, the Essenes, the Orphic Mysteries, the Pythagorean School, Eleusis, the Isis Mysteries, Kabbalah, Mithraic Mysteries, Hermeticism, Gnosticism, Neoplatonism, alchemy, the Templars, and the Sophia tradition. What is the common thread that holds all these different traditions together as it comes down to us today as the Rosicrucian Order?
Well, this is a tradition that's been perpetuated over the millennia. And it started thousands of years ago when people had a much closer relationship with nature and understood things in a different way than we do now. And people gave their lives to perpetuate this wisdom. Sometimes these various traditions that you just mentioned had to go underground in order to protect themselves. Yet there were always individuals who perpetuated this wisdom and allowed it to be passed on and never lost.
Give us an example of an ancient mystery religion and how that helped the people at the time?
Well, these are in various traditions. There's the ancient Egyptian traditions.
Give us an example of that.
Well, there were initiations that took place in ancient Egypt, and these presented objective lessons of laws that showed that we're really connected with each other, and even more than that, that we have a connection with the divine. The Greeks did the same thing in the Eleusinian mysteries and at the tradition at Delphi. Now, I don't want to suggest that anyone knows exactly what took place in their initiations. These ancient traditions usually required that the participants promised not to share the secrets of the initiation. However, we are familiar with the traditions and with their philosophy and can understand from that.
How do you understand the word divine? You used that word before. What does that word mean to you?
Well, the divine is that spark that exists within us, that is a piece or an aspect of whatever the great mystery of the universe is.
For many millennia, the authority has ruled in the kingdom of heaven with absolute control. He named himself the Creator, the Father, the Almighty. He is none of those, but just an angel, like ourselves. And he rules with the dark angel by his side. We who fought for truth were cast out of the kingdom. Since then, we have lived between the worlds, watching and waiting for vengeance. A spark of hope is alive among humankind. A bold leader is rallying warriors. He may be mortal, but his ambitions transcend his kind. A serpent has been summoned. A new Eve emerges. The time for a new rebellion is coming.
If you look in this synagogue and count all the chairs, both in the audience section and in the inner circle here, this little semicircle, you have 111 seats in total. And once I got that figure, it was obvious to me, and I was literally just led right to where I had seen these things before. And this is all related to the Kabbalah, okay? You have your Kabbalah tree, your 10-10-10, and your 1-1-1, and the knowledge of learning and gaining throughout your life, essentially. Kabbalah is very, very ancient and very, very Jewish, and you can learn all about it. They're eager to teach you about it. Again, I'll leave all these links. What is Kabbalah? It is the soul of Judaism. This is what they say, and I'll leave links for everything. But the Kabbalah also has other uses, and you know, the ones who attend the synagogue, essentially they're probably 98% well-meaning, God-loving. They sincerely seek the Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but they're being deceived, okay? And that little tiny percentage, they're the ones that are doing the deceiving, and they're the ones that are working for Satan. And hardly any of them even know it, but some of them do. And they work off of the Kabbalah tree. Now, there are many versions. The tarot emanates from the Kabbalah tree. Okay, you need to look into this stuff if you're so inclined.
Really, Sfat is the city of Kabbalah, and when we're living in Sfat, we're actually in tune to that deeper essence of reality. Kabbalah is the existential truth of reality, the building blocks of creations. So our physical senses, our physical beings only see the external layers of reality. But living in Sfat, we really are living from that place that everything has a soul. Everything is an expression of one unified field of godly energy. And through learning Kabbalah, and specifically learning in Sfat, we're really able to peel away those levels of concealment to really see the reality and see the truth of reality for what it is. Really a very big blessing to be here. And there are very many righteous women here in Sfat today, and all of us who are learning, really learning mystical Torah and learning Kabbalah.
Right. Well, also and beautiful because, we know throughout history that it was always like in Kabbalah, the men were only able to study it when they turned 40. And you have a very special man as a husband who has always embraced your divine feminine and sharing in this knowledge. And you both have grown together, and you do so much through livekabbalah.com and the school that you're able to provide. Tell us about that and kind of, what you have, in store for the next year.
So I think in general, the world has really shifted in terms of learning Kabbalah. But you said it used to be something that only men would learn, and maybe at the age of 40. But actually, the Lubavitcher Rebbe actually said in the year 1992 that through our work in these 5,000 years of exile, we've actually, and bringing godly consciousness into the world, and through learning Torah, which is God's infinite wisdom, and performing his commandments, his mitzvot, which is God's infinite will for the world, we've actually refined and elevated the actual fabric of creation. And therefore, what I see in Live Kabbalah is that the entire world is much more receptive to these teachings right now, specifically in this juncture of cosmic history. And Arizal said that now is the time we have to spread these teachings to the masses, because it connects us to the Eitz HaChaim, the tree of life, and we see how much darkness there is in the world and how much we need these teachings.
Right. Especially now, because we know in this process, all the sages have said the Messianic process is extreme polarization, darkness, confusion. The only way the light could come in, you have a dark room, all you got to do is light a match and there's light, even if it's not the light of the studio, for example. So why is also this such an important cosmic time in history? It's a critical juncture in the world, and we're seeing it in Israel every day. There's a lot of tension, but we also know there's a lot of light.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important as women to really connect to these teachings with the power that we have of women. As the Arizal says, that right before Mashiach, there's the rise of the feminine energies in the world. And it said that through righteous women, women were redeemed from Egypt, and through righteous women, we're going to be redeemed in the future redemption. And the Arizal also says that this generation, we are reincarnations of the souls that came out of Egypt. So it's so vital in our generation, specifically as women, to be learning this mystical dimension of the Torah.
Wow.
11. You chose to resist.
Now that I'm here, I can feel him. And he's still alive. And he's not going to stop. We have to kill him.
When I was in there, I saw something.
The Mind Flayer is opening more gates.
It is time for you to join me.
Vecnus is 5-star general.
Shouldn't have done that. They hurt me. I want you to join me. You cannot hide from me.
All I know is that thing shouldn't be here, shouldn't be alive. This still isn't over. We're gonna need a miracle.
I can still feel him. I'm still marked. Cursed.
the two pillars, Jachin and Boaz, outside of the temple, which I believe is what was being referred to in Ezekiel as the abominations at the gate of the altar. I just don't see how God could approve of them. And he tells Ezekiel to go into and see the abominations that they do. And just for this video, because I just can't contain and show all of it to you, but the 111 should just tell you that they're totally Kabbalists. And the way that these chairs are situated is very, very telling. Because if you look on the inner section here, there are 2 rows of 4 chairs at the very, very center of the synagogue here. Right up towards the front, which is right here. You see these 2 rows of 4 chairs? Those, plus the idol, because that's what I'm calling it. I'm calling that an abomination. They've gone in here more or less in secret, doing it right in front of us though, because that's what they do. And they've created an abomination almost directly below where the holies of holies, the literal presence of God would be.
I've decided to start learning about Kabbalah, and it's blowing my mind.
The more you learn, the more you don't know.
Kabbalah, a mystical interpretation of the Torah that's thousands of years old.
If you really want to get the depth of it, you're going to have to commit to your own intense spiritual journey.
I'm open to more spirituality in my life, but nothing has really nourished my soul the way I had hoped. My unlikely path to Kabbalah began here at a New York Rangers game. I started talking with a friend. He suggested I get in touch with a rabbi he knows.
I view the study of Kabbalah before one is truly versed in at least the basics, the foundations of Judaism, as rushing to the dessert before one has even partaken of the main meal.
This is all new to me, to our kids, to Miriam, especially the rituals. We feel a bit like visitors from another planet.
The whole point of Kabbalah teaches you whatever comes your way, there's a reason for it.
The real Kabbalists wouldn't even have like a non-Jewish person involved. Well, my father is Jewish, and his name is Jesus.
How do you balance a normal life with a deeper spiritual commitment?
I really think you got to go to Israel.
Makes me nervous because we have a family, we're in this together, and I'm not really interested in becoming observant to find spirituality. I mean, I'd prefer he not be too extreme.
Kabbalah is how to learn the language of the heart. The way to change that out there is to change this in here.
First time I really prayed and connected. It took me 49.5 years.
And there's 8 chairs, and the 9. That's what's known as the Council of 9. And if you don't believe that that's true, I just don't know what to tell you. But, I mean, simple wiki. If you do any digging into this, you'll find the real nitty-gritty details, but the Council of 9 is very real. It was to punish mankind, Zeus, and 8 other deities gathered to form the Council of 9. It's all here, and I most assuredly will link everything that I have, okay? And once again, to illustrate how they put it right in your face, check this out. Everybody has seen this. Everyone has seen the avocados from Mexico. So very funny, very comical, hilarious commercial. This is the level that they go because it's so outrageous. Who would ever think that they're going to actually show you the truth in a stupid avocado commercial while they're mocking the living daylights out of you? It's just ridiculous. 9. Okay? I'm just saying, this is how they work. And let's not forget, at the very same time that they were basically consecrating this thing, they were burning incense in a fashion that they have not done in 2,000 years, people.
Specifically, Kabbalah is actually feminine in its essence. So they're feminine and masculine, we think of as genders, but they're actually energies, spiritual energies that make up the very fundamental core energies of the world. The feminine energies are called the mashpia. The masculine energies are called the mashpia, the contributor or the giver. And the feminine energies are called the makabel, which is the receiver.
By the power of Grayskull!
For the honor of Grayskull! Shiva, Shiva! Shiva! Shiva, Shiva! I am Shiva!
This looks like double trouble. Let's move, Cat.
That's why specifically at this juncture in history where the feminine energies are rising in the world, it's so important for us to learn Kabbalah, but learn it really from the feminine perspective. That learning Kabbalah in our generation, in this time in cosmic history, is not just learning about it in an esoteric way, but it's actually learning it in a way that we receive the information, we expand upon it, we embody these concepts, we integrate it into our everyday lives to influence the way we connect to God, to ourselves emotionally, in our relationships, in our business dealings, and to the way we relate to the entire world. So
that's why really also, Bina, Malchut, those are feminine energies. And even your husband has said, like the bride, they talk about the Shabbat, the bride in the Zohar. The bride is the female and that needs to go up to meet that energy, right?
Hi, everyone. Did you know that Judaism teaches that their Messiah comes from below? Listen to this rabbi teach that upon the destruction of Jerusalem, a little baby was saved and brought to the bird's nest. He will be their Messiah. He will rise from the underworld. Our Messiah, Jesus, comes from above, but their Messiah, he comes from below, and I will document this from the Jewish sources.
Clearly a reptilian. These are reptilian entities, and they're the good guys. They are not all of this dimension, they're of different dimensions. Many of them are ancient. They know us all too well. Many of them are in inner earth. And according to our legends, on the day of the destruction of the temple, first temple, 586 BCE, on the 9th of Av, the day of the destruction, a woman of the house of David gave birth to a child. This is a legend, this is Midrash, this is a Gemara. And the child was abducted and taken away. The Zohar states that this child for the last 2,500 plus years has been raised in a place called the Bird's Nest, which is said to be in inner earth, in a place called the Garden of Eden. And you know where the Garden of Eden is. Well, let me rephrase that. You know how to access the Garden of Eden, don't you? Midrash. Abraham certainly knew this. When Abraham said that one of the stories says one of his sheep ran into a cave. He goes into the cave. He smells something really fragrant. And he finds the burial place of Adam and Eve. Adam gets up and talks to him. Hey, how's it going? All right. Nice to talk to a dead guy. And he's talking. Okay, remember, it's a story. And it is said that the cave of Machpelah in Hebron is the entranceway to the Garden of Eden. Have ever you guys been in a cave? We got plenty of beautiful caves out here in East Tennessee. Wonderful places. We even have our own cave in our property, which hopefully we'll develop one day. And gardens. How many people grow gardens in a cave? Garden of Eden's in a cave? Certainly not. But the access to the Garden of Eden is in this cave. Well, how do you get from the garden to the cave and the cave to the garden? We would call that a dimensional vortex passageway.
And so we're looking at this synagogue here, and its situation is off the hook. And I have to point this stuff out. If you take the next row of chairs, it's very telling. It is 15. 2 rows of 4, 2 sets of 2, and 1 row of 3. 15 and 8 are 23. 23 and the 1, 24. What did Ron Wyatt tell us about Jesus' blood? 24 chromosomes, right? And I've shown you the date from when Ron Wyatt found that ark and the date that they consecrated the synagogue, 13131. And you just need to just look into these things to understand how unbelievable this is. Depending on the calculator that you use, I got this set so where it breaks it down into like to the millionth, to the 100,000th. So I get, if I just took a regular calculator and I took 13131 and I divided it by 13, the rebellion 1010 76923 76923 76923. Okay, and you're not going to get that unless you use this type of calculator. If you just use a standard calculator and do the same thing and divide it by 13, you're just going to get your 1010. And what is your 1010? Your 1010 is the bottom of your Kabbalah. You see where I'm coming from? This is how it works, and this is how they do their work in the dark. Who sees us? Who knows us? It's my contention that these people, these whatever you want to call them, know that what Ron Wyatt found was real and that it's going to be revealed, because all things in the dark will be revealed. All things. And they're planning. They need to plan to either stop that information from getting out, or debunk it, or steal it, or create some level of chaos, a war, a giant deception, if you will. Now, one more interesting thing. From the dedication of the temple and the burning of the incense to the blue blood moon, 44 days. Very important once again. And I'm not going to get into the details, but this Kabbalah was reinstituted and reconfigured by this man right here. And now they work under a different system.
It's like a marriage of masculine and feminine to bring a new age, right? And to bring a new age, right?
Welcome to Exploring Kabbalah. In this episode, you'll hear from the founder of the Corinne Kabbalah Center, where mysticism has been taught in Atlanta for 30 years. But first, Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m., a dozen or so adults gather at the In-Town Jewish Academy Adult Education Center of Chabad in-town of Atlanta for Kabbalah and coffee, and bagels and lox. Today's theme, the secrets of the lost ark.
There was a rock in the Holy of Holies from the days of the early prophets, which the commentaries say refers to David and Samuel, who laid the groundwork for construction of the temple.
Rabbi Ari Solish, the director, is live streaming the class on social media. Peter Morton is one of the regulars.
Growing up, I had absolutely no knowledge of Kabbalah, so I was first introduced to it at a smaller Torah study group, and it was just basically an unknown, and I was confused about really what Kabbalah was. So when I discovered that Rabbi Solish was giving this class, I said, excellent, I'll go to an authority, an expert, and really learn it from inside out. And so I've been attending this for a while, and it's good because it's made me more introspective. It's another dimension. It just adds another dimension, more layers, as far as your knowledge, your depth of understanding of Judaism.
The core sacred text of the Jewish faith is the Hebrew Bible, the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. And according to Jewish mysticism, it too is imbued with mystical qualities.
The Kabbalah says that a Torah scroll, which is written with black ink on parchment, evokes an image of fire. Black fire on white fire. Black fire on white fire. And if you're wondering what's black fire, I've never seen black fire. If you look at a candle, if you look at a flame, the closer you get to the source, the darker it is. And if you really look close at the source, it's a dark, maybe it's not black, but it's a dark hue. As you get further away from it, and the temperature is less hot, so it's a little bit whiter. So Torah is black fire on white fire. Torah's words are alive. It says that you can read the Torah in different ways. There's no punctuation in Torah. You have barely any line breaks. Once in a while you have spaces and line breaks. You have spaces between words, but so the Kabbalists say that the entire Torah are the names of God. All the letters, and you can read them in different ways. You can read them the way they're divided into words, or you can read them as lines of code. There are different ways to read Torah. One thing we know, though, is that Torah, the words of Torah, are alive. On a very basic level, we can say that Torah is a guide for life. You study Torah, and not only do you know what to do and how to respond in certain situations, you learn how to think. And how to think in a way that's noble and dignified. And not just think in a way that's self-serving, but in a way that's selfless, that's giving, that's higher than the lowliness that otherwise is around us. Torah's words are vibrant in the sense, and alive in the sense that they inform the way we live. And they're meant to be lived by and not just studied. It's not just a history, Torah is not just a history book. This is what happened once upon a time, 3,000 years ago. And it's not even a book of ancient law that's irrelevant really today. We live in a different country, in a different society. We don't, it's American society, U.S. society in Atlanta, Georgia, or wherever it is, doesn't abide by Jewish law. So you might think, okay, it's an interesting ancient code of law, but it's not relevant. Every verse of Torah, every line of Torah, every letter of Torah is about life, and it has guidance for life. And in that way, it's very much a living, breathing Torah. So I always say this. If you study Torah and it doesn't speak to you, got to try again. Try again, keep on studying until it speaks to you. Until it changes something about how you see the world or how you live your life. Because it has so much meaning in it. It's like that fire that is moving and vibrant and vital and life-giving.
And the text, perhaps because of its vibrancy, is to be grappled with, a reflection of the biblical story of Jacob wrestling with, well, that's the question.
Well, there are different ways to understand this mysterious wrestling match of Jacob and this unnamed adversary. So typically we understand it to be an angel. Some say that Jacob was fighting with himself, a la Fight Club, right? He's like fighting with himself almost, struggling, that inner struggle between, where I need to be and where I am, my destiny and my status quo. So, different ways to understand the struggle, but one thing is for certain, and that is that there's always, anything that's worth having is the product of struggle and challenge. Anything that's worth having is usually worth fighting for and the product of fighting for it. So Jacob wrestling with the angel can mean wrestling with the forces around us to try to hold us back, wrestling within ourselves to bring out the best within ourselves and not succumb to those self-defeating voices, whether it's sadness or melancholy or cynicism or self-doubt, whatever it is. It's not succumbing to those voices. It's fighting to keep on going, or it's grappling with Scripture itself, and it's saying, I don't accept what the words are saying on the surface. I don't accept that this is just an ancient story of Abraham and Sarah in a tent in the desert. I believe that this is a message for me. It's Torah Chaim. It's a Torah of life. And I believe that there's a life lesson that I will learn from this if I just rip off the cover, so to speak. If I just uncover the truth, I can see what lies inside. Kabbalah does a lot of that. Kabbalah says that every verse, every word in Torah is a lesson in life. It's a holy, Scripture is holy, the Torah is holy, but more than just abstractly being the Word of God, it's the Word of the living God for us to live by. And it has incredible messages in life. And Kabbalah, again, does a lot of that, explaining the rituals, explaining stories in a very contemporary way.
It makes a lot of sense that Kabbalah would be embraced in the 21st century and well beyond the Jewish community.
Kabbalah is the most profound wisdom about the universe and about ourselves. So it's not surprising that people searching for meaning will be attracted to this. Now, why Hollywood? I don't know. I mean, I could speculate that perhaps in a place of heavy materialism, the soul cries out for something a little bit deeper, and there's nothing deeper than Kabbalah, so it makes sense that that Kabbalah is popular there amongst those circles. Is it blasphemy? So here's the thing. Assuming that authentic Kabbalah is being taught, so then it's authentic Kabbalah. I think the challenge lies into how do you strip Kabbalah from Judaism? I don't know. I'm not personally familiar with, what the teachings that are taught in other centers or whatever. I don't know. Here we teach from the original text. We don't create our own texts. Typically, we just. I feel like my role here is to be a conduit, is to tell you what it says in the books. This is what it says. This is the way I understand it, and now you can apply it and grow with it. If Kabbalah is being taught in a way that it's kind of diluting the original to make it, kind of pop culture or make it that, then that might be a criticism against that methodology. But I don't have firsthand knowledge of how it's done or whatever it is. But again, I think that the popularity of Kabbalah is very understandable because it's so amazing, because it's so uplifting, it's so enriching, it's so clarifying, it's so mind-opening. It makes sense that people are attracted to it.
And the language of mysticism in Kabbalah, the Jewish tradition, may also be reflected in mystical traditions of other spiritual paths.
If something is true, you're going to find it in multiple places. In other words, if something is essentially true, it's going to come up. It's almost like scientific proof, right? If you test something under multiple conditions and it still is true, then you know that's most likely to be a true reality or a true phenomenon. So the same thing is true to a large extent with mystical teachings. You will find similar mystical traditions in other circles, in other societies, in other religious contexts. Because if it's true, it's going to be in multiple places. That's the reality of it. Now, I think there's a lot of commonality in the Eastern traditions as well. So Buddhism and other traditions. One teaching that I've heard is that, and the Bible does say this. It says that Abraham, toward the end of his life, he had additional children, and he sent them off to the east, and he gave them gifts. And the commentators say, what gifts did he give them? What he gave them? Money. He gave them. Chanukah Geld, what did he give them? So it says that he gave them gifts of wisdom. And so some have said that what does it mean? That the Eastern philosophies and methodologies, that wisdom ultimately stems from Abraham, and Abraham, of course, according to many, is the author of Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation. So there's a lot of Kabbalistic commonality that exists. Now, that's not to say that all spiritual traditions are synonymous. They're not, but you will find crossover and points that you kind of come up within different traditions.
One of the world's newest and fastest growing religions, however, many people still have never heard of Baha'i religion. Millions of people around the world have converted to it because of its message of unity and community. Our in-depth reporter Anthony Hill set out to take a look at this religion, and he spoke with Baha'is right here in the Bay Area about tenets of the religion and what makes it so inclusive.
The Baha'i religion was founded in 1844 in Persia, which is present-day Iran. Followers believe in the oneness of all world religions, and since its founding, it's spread to nearly every corner of the planet, including right here in the Bay Area. In Palm Harbor, some in the Manfra family haven't eaten all day long. That's because, like many religions, Baha'is have a season when they fast, from March 2nd to the 21st, and from sunup to sundown. Baha'is over the age of 15 don't eat or drink.
We get up, say a prayer, eat a big breakfast, and then we push through the day until sunset, and then say another prayer and eat. To me, it's important because it makes me examine what I may be doing or intaking that might be excessive.
We'll catch up with the Manfra family later. I wanted to find out more about this growing religion, so I went to Plant City, where Dr. John Hatcher lives. He's a professor emeritus from the University of South Florida, and he's written several books about the Baha'i religion.
We believe there is one God and really one religion, the religion of God, but it's been revealed in successive and progressive stages throughout the history of humankind.
He says Baha'is embrace the world's largest religions, such as Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, and Christianity. They believe that God revealed himself to humanity in different parts of the world at different times through the prophets of those religions to bring teachings that address the needs and conditions of humanity. Dr. Hatcher teaches virtual classes about the history and virtues of the religion every other Wednesday and posts them on YouTube.
Hello, I'm Professor John Hatcher, and I appreciate your coming to this site.
And you won't find any sermons or clergy in a Baha'i place of worship. It's just a place where people come to reflect and pray in their own way.
A gate behind which the demons wait. A gate. Crazy. They have opened the gate.
One of the core tenets of the religion is unity through community, regardless of race, religion, or nationality.
The elimination of prejudice, independent investigation of faith, equality between men and women.
Leslie Farrell has been a Baha'i for 22 years.
Well, my roommate in college was a Baha'i. She didn't ever say anything, though. She had a prayer book that said Baha'i prayers, and I asked her, well, what is that? And then she just told me about it, and I thought, that sounds like the religion that I have that I didn't know existed.
Meanwhile, back in Palm Harbor, at the Manfra's house, the sun has finally set, and the family, along with some of their non-Baha'i friends, are ready to break their fast, but not before a quick prayer.
In the name of him who hath been promised in the books of God, the all-knowing, the all-informed. The days of fasting have arrived, wherein those servants who circle around thy throne have attained to thy presence have fasted.
On the menu, chicken, fish, macaroni and cheese, and fruit.
Can I have some too?
AJ Manfra turned 16 recently, and he says he made the decision to join the religion because of how inclusive it is.
Just because it's so open-minded, and I feel like me, myself, I'm an open-minded person, and I really like to keep everybody included and really just diverse, and that's what it stands for, so it's a really important one to me.
AJ's friend, Clayton, is not Baha'i, but he says he always feels welcomed in that community.
I always feel included when I go to the Baha'i meetings or just when we meet up and just have fun.
You know, I feel really welcomed. Even though I'm not Baha'i, I still do feel welcomed and I still feel there.
There are more than 6 million Baha'is living around the world and about 177,000 in the United States. Definitely still considered a small religion, but there are 4 places of worship right here in the Bay Area. In Tampa Bay, I'm in-depth reporter Anthony Hill, ABC Action News.
Specifically, when we actually learn these teachings and we receive them and we integrate them, and that's what we do in Live Kabbalah. It's actually called Live Kabbalah because it's not just receiving the teachings and just in a passive way, but it's actually living with it, integrating it. And that brings so much light in this darkness, so vital in this time, as the Arizal says. It really connects us to the tree of life, the Eitz HaChaim, so vital in this dark world. And and it's so
Keep
powerful.
shining, girl.
In ancient times, they called Kabbalah mysticism. But if you tried to explain the computer just even 200 years ago, or the fax machine or the internet, they'd call it mysticism. So Kabbalah spoke about concepts that were literally not just centuries, but even millennia ahead of time. So for example, the Zohar, 2,000 years ago, which is 1,500 years before Columbus, the Zohar spoke about a round earth. To quote, "The whole world rolls around like a ball, so that some people are above and some are below." The Zohar said 2,000 years ago that true reality exists in 10 dimensions. Can you imagine? We just learned about dimensions in this century, that there's other dimensions we can't see. So Kabbalah said true reality exists actually in 10 dimensions. Now, why is that important? They said, if you look around with your 5 senses, we only detect 1% of true reality. The remaining 99% is hidden, says Kabbalah, in these other dimensions.
Please, could you stay a while to share my grief? For it's such a lovely day to have to always feel this way, and the time that I will suffer less is when I never have to wake. Wandering stars, for whom it is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. Wandering stars, for whom it is preserved the blackness of darkness forever. Those who have seen the needless sign out dread, like a husk from which all that was now has fled, and the masks that the monsters wear to feed upon their prey. Wandering stars,
That song is a version of Wandering Star by Portishead, back from the 90s. It's a great song, but it's actually quoting from the book of Jude, as I'm sure some of you recognize. Jude being really the only specific mention of what today we call planets anywhere in the Bible. I believe there is one other reference in the Old Testament which certain translations render planet, but honestly it's a lot more ambiguous as to whether that's a correct translation or not. But in Jude, Wandering Star is undeniably, referring to, that's what all the ancient peoples called the planets. And the context of that verse is extremely interesting, because of course in verse 13 of Jude chapter 1, he's talking about ungodly men who have rejected authority and followed the way of Cain, and he makes a number of poetic descriptions, one of which is they are wandering stars for whom the blackest darkness has been reserved forever. So he's making an external reference, directly linking the wandering stars with judgment. And it's made that much more interesting being in the book of Jude, which is quotes from the book of Enoch and connects to what it says about the luminaries that did not hold to their assigned paths and the judgment that was given to them. But why am I talking about all this? In the past, I've touched upon this in the sense that in Genesis, when it's on day 4, when the luminaries are created, it only mentions, of course, the sun, moon, and stars, and those are 3 distinct creations. The sun is clearly not one of the stars, and this is not observational language or whatever kinds of hermeneutic contrivances people want to come up with. There are 3 distinct categories. And of course, the planets is not a part of that. They're simply stars, sun, moon, and stars. But what's also noteworthy is that it's just the term or mention of planets missing in the original creation, but this whole concept of a planetary system, a solar system, is nowhere found in the Bible. I mean, in the book of Job, it does reference the constellations, and the constellations having names, and so by that we can infer that the constellations were actually a part of the original design. But the idea of these wandering stars being part of the design and comprising this very complex system is never so much as hinted at, and that becomes increasingly significant when you turn and then look into the realm of the occult and mysticism and things like the Kabbalah, because it starts to become very interesting that the planets long before Galileo or Copernicus or any of the modern conceptions of a solar system were around, the planets were, centuries before any of that came about, were regarded as being part of a system. And like that guy, I think his name is Billy Phillips, he's a Kabbalist teacher, he says that there are 10 dimensions, and so when you start to explore how the Kabbalistic tree of life is essentially one of the things it's supposedly representing is these 10 spheres, and these 10, they correspond to the planets, and they are also dimensions, and they correspond to chakras in the body supposedly, and on, and it's also this system of gods. It is the pantheon of gods.
What are people like on the inside?
Inside most people, there's a feeling of being separate. Separated from everything.
And
they're not. They're part of absolutely everyone. And everything.
everything. I'm part of this tree. Part of Zach barking over fences. You're telling me that I'm part of some fisherman in Italy on some ocean I've never even heard of? No, some guy sitting on death row. I'm part of him too.
You don't believe me?
It's hard to believe that. All of that.
Well, that's because you have this spot that you can't see past. My Grams and Gramps had it. The spot where they were taught they were disconnected from everything.
So that's what they'd see if they could. That they're connected?
And how beautiful they really are. And that there's no need to hide or lie. And then it's possible to talk to someone without any lies, with no sarcasms, no deceptions, no exaggerations, or any of the things that people use to confuse the truth.
I don't know a single person who does that.
Hold out your hand. Put your fingers up.
Is that your heartbeat?
And yours?
Oh, this feels strange.
You're afraid someone will see us holding hands?
You're really nervous talking to me.
You don't think you're pretty enough?
You feel alone. You feel so alone.
Sometimes you just want to break out of yourself.
Your father. Your father hurt you a long time ago? You're so sad. He made you so sad. You thought you were ugly and he kept saying you weren't. I'm so sorry.
Do you? Do you?
Do I what?
Do you think I'm ugly?
I don't know what I think when I look at you. But sometimes I think you're the most beautiful face I've ever seen.
which appear in every pagan mythology, every pagan pantheon, in some form or another. And there's, and there's endless variations depending on, the Chinese system or the Babylonian system or the Egyptian system or the Norse mythologies, the Aztec and the Maya. All these, slightly different deities, slightly different, but they all incorporate the planets. And the more you delve into this, the more you see how central it is to all occult cosmologies, all occult belief systems, while the only reference in the Bible is really this one in Jude, and it is one associated with judgment and rebellion and the fallen angels. And I've actually been listening to a number of lectures given by Manly P. Hall, the famed occultist. He talks a lot about the solar system and the planetary bodies, and the ancient connection to the ancient gods and Kabbalah and everything. He knew all the different. Manly P. Hall was, in many ways, was the original progenitor of astrotheology in the 20th century, combining Gnosticism and all the different occult traditions and shamanic traditions. And basically what Manly P. Hall explains is that according to the ancients, and by ancients he means, the ancient pagan mystery schools, understanding the planets, the pantheon, as a system, the significance is that it very much does function like a ladder.
The universe was not strange. It was near. It was not terrible. It was tremendous, but not fear-inspiring. It was vast, but this very vastness challenged man to grow rather than to surround him with fear. And so enlightened peoples began to reach out in friendliness to the stars. They did not populate the firmament with evil beings, but with great good powers. And they sensed these good powers as forever protective and paternal. They sensed these powers as contributing continuously to the well-being of every creature that existed. And by the time Egyptian civilization had arisen, we see this universe in which we live strangely charted, mysteriously organized into planes and levels and spheres and departments. There were worlds within worlds, wheels within wheels, as in the story of Ezekiel's vision. Man saw the universe as a vast structure of evolving life and saw himself moving through this structure.
You know, according to any form of Luciferianism, there's no such thing as sin. There's no such thing as a rebellion against God. It was simply some kind of a choice that was made back in the distant past to go on this journey of discovery, this journey of enlightenment. And so man left his original abode in the stars, living with the gods, and came down to the mortal existence that we now have, and he came down through these planetary levels, these dimensions, these spheres. And so the ultimate goal is to eventually ascend back up through them and go back to where we came from, to return to the stars. And this is what is so interesting once you really start to kind of look at just materialistic Copernican cosmology and what it says, how in so many ways it does seem to be actually preserving these old pagan mythological concepts in a materialistic form in some way or another, in the sense of, you know, we're all star stuff, we came from the stars, you know, there's a materialistic embodiment of that. And then conversely, by going back up through the stars, by spreading out and conquering the solar system, you can even think of the planets as being these like stepping stones, these stages of, you know, exploring the cosmos. And it is pretty uncanny how it still mirrors so much of the underlying concepts. And the more I really think about this, the more it makes sense in the way that that's really all that Satan cares about in the end, is the embedded teaching within this false belief system versus that false belief system. He doesn't really care whether someone is deceived by atheism or materialism, scientific materialism, or if they're, you know, full-blown occultic mysticism, you know, or whatever combination between. It's all, the net effect is the same.
Who are you? One moment, I was Jack Orion.
Funny how your memory leaves you right after you're born. It can take decades sometimes for people to even remember who they are or why they're here.
Do you believe that the universe is infinite? Open your mind, Jack. You can become whoever it is you want to be.
Once you wake up, you can't come back.
If the prophecies are correct, he is Kalki. And if he is Kalki, you must terminate him.
Jack, wake up.
How can I become as good as you?
This will help.
Are you ready to wake up?
Thought I was awake.
If I succeed, then the human race can return to a time of splendor, time of wealth, time of happiness. This is a revolution of the spirit. What if they don't want to hear the truth?
They don't, Jack. What do you think we're sending you?
And that's why it's pretty amazing the more you study about Copernican cosmology, where you can see these parallels and how, with all the changes, it's still, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. You know, I think about the analogy of, you know, it doesn't matter, like Satan doesn't care if, you know, if you prefer Harry Potter, you know, or if you prefer Star Wars. Either way, it's the same witchcraft, it's the same Gnostic worldview being preached. You know, he doesn't care whether you like wands or you like lightsabers. You know, it's all the same. You know, it makes no difference in the end. And again, going back to the quote at the beginning, when he's quoting from the Zohar was written in the 13th century, talking about Earth, the Earth rolls, and there's people on top of it and people on the bottom of it. The Bible never says anything like that. Yet in the Zohar, which when you really boil it down, I mean, it's either a total forgery, or what I would say is almost certainly it's a demonically inspired book. It's an occult book. It's a doctrine of demons. So we see the origins of all these concepts coming from the mystery schools, coming from mysticism, coming from the occult, and it's continuing to preach the same message of ascension, of returning to the stars, of becoming like gods. That's what transhumanism is. It's the same old Luciferian message. And it's all a lie. The Bible does not teach anything resembling a planetary system, a planetary map. That's what this tree of life is. It's basically the idea. And it makes sense when the original design for the creation, the original purpose of the stars that seem to be administrated by the angelic beings, was to serve as to mark the times and seasons. That's what it says. So it was a calendar and it was a map. That was the original intention behind the luminaries. And of course, the way Satan takes everything and perverts it and spins it and twists it into a Luciferian message. Of course, that's what the luminaries have been turned into, this map towards apotheosis, a map for. That's what this tree of the Kabbalistic tree of life is. It's like a diagram outlining how to navigate your way through the planetary spheres, through these dimensions of reality. Turning it into a map through Satanism, which is just a labyrinth of lies and dead ends, and leading you to hell.
They say the devil is in the details, but we only see God in this Ariana Grande video. Welcome to Ms. Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 5 references you missed in Ariana Grande's God is a Woman video. For this list, we're simply looking at some of the inspiration behind the images in this symbolic video. Number 5. The female form and beauty. You believe God is a woman. While the celebration of the female body and beauty is front and center in the video, we'd be remiss to not include it on our list. Ariana shows that the female is divine in the lush images she creates, particularly the shot of her naked in the marbled purple and blue water. The shape of the pool resembles a vagina, and the whole scene feels like a Georgia O'Keeffe creation. She gives us many examples of female beauty, from the softer images of the multiple Arianas in nature to the strong gladiator look. Her looks show the versatility of female expression, from a schoolgirl to literal Mother Earth, and effortlessly conveys the beauty of each one.
Then you're different from the rest, and boy, if you confess, you might get blessed.
Number 4. Ari addresses her haters.
I'm telling you the way I like it, how I want it.
Being in the public eye comes with hate. But female performers get more than their fair share, especially when it comes to sexist trolls.
You need a little brushing up on equality over here.
To clap back at the gendered insults and slut-shaming, a giant Ariana is seen looking bored and disinterested, as men call her names like slut, fake.
Talk about brotherly love. Ariana Grande is opening up about her decision to leave the Catholic Church, and it has a lot to do with her brother Frankie. As we're sure you know, AG's half-brother Frankie is openly gay, and when he came out, it made Ariana question her faith. In an interview with The Independent, Ariana opened up about the whole situation and was very candid, telling the outlet, "When my brother was told that God didn't love him, I was like, okay, that's not cool." However, Ariana is a spiritual person, so they decided to try their hand with another religion, Kabbalah, and discussed how they came to that decision. They were building a Kabbalah center in Florida, so we both checked it out and really had a connection with it. She also mentioned that she believes the tools she learned through her new faith have led her down the path she's currently taking, aka being one of the biggest pop stars on the planet right now.
These words bounce off of her as she sings about being in control of her sexuality and desires. Other visuals throughout the video show Ariana expressing her individuality and not being afraid of the naysayers. She's backed up by all of her fans and supporters, who are represented by the 3-headed dog Cerberus, the guardian dog of the underworld, that ties back to the God theme.
When you try to cover me, I keep on flourishing.
Number 3. Femininity and water.
And I feel it after midnight, a feeling that you can't fight my one.
It's clear that nothing in this video is here by mistake, including shots that at first glance may seem unrelated to the rest of the video, like the inclusion of Ariana in a lighthouse. Women give birth to new life, and it's water that sustains it. Because of this, women and water are inextricable from the thriving of humanity. While both are crucial, both are also misused and mistreated. So by tying them together, Ariana stresses their importance. With Ariana standing in a lighthouse with the swell of water around her, she's positioning herself as the guardian of both. Number 2. Dismantling the patriarchy. The future is definitely female. But there's still a lot to be done until we get to that point. To help smash the patriarchy, Ariana literally takes the law of the land in her own hands. You see in the video, she's seen holding what looks like a mallet in the Pantheon, but it's actually a large gavel. That gavel is a stand-in for the law, many that uphold the patriarchy in both minor and major ways. By grabbing ownership of the law, she has the power to break the glass ceiling for womankind.
Although we weren't able to shatter that highest, hardest glass ceiling this time, thanks to you, it's got about 18 million cracks in it.
Force field. It's a dome. We're at the edge of the arena.
Which she does when she throws the mallet.
And it may be hard to see tonight, but we are all standing under a glass ceiling right now. And the light is shining through like never before, filling us all with the hope and the sure knowledge that the path will be a little easier next time.
Number 1. Women as the ultimate providers. We're used to hearing men referred to as the head of the family, but Ariana flips that idea. The video illustrates women as the ultimate providers, particularly the arresting image of 3 men suckling at the teats of Ariana's enlarged body. The image harkens back to the Roman myth of Romulus and Remus, who are often portrayed in art as suckling at the breast of a she-wolf. Ariana embodies the symbol of women providing all life, since we'd literally be nowhere without them. She furthers these ideas with the womb imagery and the recreation of Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel at the end of the video.
You believe God is a woman. Ariana said that since joining the church, quote, "My life has unfolded in a really beautiful way, and I think that it has a lot to do with the tools I've learned through Kabbalah. I really do." Bringing it back to her brother Frankie, Ariana said that he is the main reason she even got into singing, because since he's 10 years older than her, she really idolized him. So when Frankie got into musical theater, Ariana followed suit. Well, that seemed to work out pretty well for her.
I'm a theoretical physicist, and I like to say that I walk in the footsteps of giants like Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr. I'm not a philosopher. However, I am rather dazzled by the fact that many of the basic mysteries that we find in string theory and the theory of everything seem to be mirrored in the Zohar and in the Kabbalah.
As a scholar, the most amazing thing of all is the degree to which modern astrophysics sounds like a Kabbalistic text.
When I first made the correlations between Kabbalah and science, I was stunned.
We do know that Isaac Newton had access to certain mystical texts, certain texts of the Kabbalah.
Well, the Kabbalistic description of creation is coming from a single little point, from a speck, and of having matter form and time and space form all together at the very beginning. This sounds very much to me like the description of the Big Bang.
I couldn't believe that the Kabbalists could derive these truths without really knowing any mathematics or physics.
It is certainly true that in string theory, the number 10 is the dimension of space-time for supersymmetrical string theories, and 26 for bosonic string theories stand out as a requirement of the mathematics.
All the things that could destroy string theory, all the things that do destroy every rival theory to string theory, they are all eliminated in precisely 10 and 26 dimensions. These dimensions are magic. We physicists don't know where these dimensions come from.
The Zohar says those things. It could just have been a lucky guess. I don't know.
The Zohar's notion that light is a realm of no time and no space is quite consistent with special relativity.
What's been stopping it so far are, number one, the lack of a good concept, and I think the Kabbalah is offering that now in the context of modern science, and two, a reticence on the part of both scientists and people in religion to mix the two.
It's rather amazing, this uncanny reflection of some of the most advanced cosmology coming from our satellites coming from our atom smashers, coming from our blackboards, that are mirrored in the Zohar and ancient Kabbalistic texts.
These stars, the hosts of heaven, God's creation, the ones, each star has its name, as it says in the scripture. God says, I have named them all. These are the eyes. These are the eyes on the wheels. Our stars. I just can't help but to quote from Isaiah 40:26. Lift up your eyes on high, and behold who hath created these things, that bringeth out their host by number. He calleth them all by names, by the greatness of his might, for that he is strong in power, not one faileth. This is what people have been missing this whole time, and it's been right in front of our faces in the scripture. This is what God was showing Ezekiel. The wheels within the wheels are the belts that surround Earth. NASA calls them the Van Allen belts. These are the invisible belts of magnetic energy within the torus that keep everything in motion, everything moving like a fine-tuned clock. All the eyes that Ezekiel saw was the stars. All the stars are created by God. They are the luminaries. That is what makes up all the eyes that is being spoken of. What Ezekiel saw was the absolute pure beauty of our home that God created for us. This is what Satan wants you blinded to. This is the absolute magnificence that Satan doesn't want you to see. This is why they mockingly show you that image in Game of Thrones and other movies, the wheels within the wheels over the flat plain earth. They're showing you the truth right in front of your face, and they laugh because you don't understand and you don't see. This is the beauty, this is the sheer absolute beauty of the world that God created, and He called it good. Now that you have eyes to see and ears to hear, now let me tell you this. These wheels that we see, these bands that move like a clock, this is how the sun and the moon do what they do. This explains their movements. It's all about magnetic energy. It's all about the magnetic fields. This is how they are frictionless and how they move in perfect unison. And just as it states in the book of Enoch, through the movement of these wheels, we see how the sun and moon will go through their vaults and rise and return in different areas. This is what the globe has blinded people to. The absolute truth of what God said all along. It has been here the whole time in the scriptures. Instead, we choose to listen to NASA. Instead, we choose to listen to the idiot box. Instead, we choose to listen to scientists, and we heap amongst ourselves teachers that teach us absolute lies to keep us in the dark. When God's been saying the whole time, just look up. Look up at what surrounds you. I made this for you. That's all God wanted to say. Just take a look. I'm here. I am right above you. You can take comfort knowing that when you step outside and gaze up into that starry wonder of God's creation, just know that our Father in heaven is sitting up there right now, staring down at all of us, watching our every move. He knows everything that's going on down here. He has not missed anything. And just know and be comforted by the fact that our Father is right there, and He's been there this whole time. This is something that the world and NASA and the scientists can never take from us, ever. Even the lying powers and signs of Satan that are coming, the lies of the fallen angels and the lies of the world that are going to be ever increasing, will still not rob this from my heart. And they will never rob from me my faith in Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords.